Hi there, Eric Becker, naturopath from New Zealand. I have a question here from Sinead Ranash Mr Ranash. Your question, Mr. Eric, I ask you for a third time to do please a video on the link between smoking and Candida. Can smoking kill flora? Can smoking feed Candida or bad bacteria? Mr. Ranash, thank you for the question. My apologies for not having previously replied to your question. So I'm going to try and do a good video for you right now on smoking and also caffeine, but particularly smoking and Candida and the link between these two things. Many people still smoke. In fact, I started smoking when I was 13 years of age. Back in the 70s and 60s, everybody smoked, as you probably know. I quit when I was in my mid-20s, thank goodness. But smoking has some very interesting effects when it comes to Candida. So what we know of, for example, what many people are concerned about with Candida is keeping their blood sugars stable. So when you eat food that contains any kind of protein, fat, carb in it, the body's going to ultimately convert those things to sugars to feed our cells. Everything eventually breaks down to some form of sugar. But if we are low on blood sugar, then the brain senses this, and then basically the body starts triggering mechanisms to release stored sugar. So cortisol, and for example, and adrenaline and other hormones are stimulated, are produced to stimulate the liver to release stored sugar called glycogen. Once this gets into the bloodstream, the brain again senses this increase in blood sugar, and then it triggers the pancreas to start secreting insulin from little hormone cells called the islets of Langerhans from the pancreas. So the pancreas secretes then insulin. Insulin travels into the blood where it sees this glycogen, It helps to convert, it's already broken down into sugar at this stage. It gets converted in the bloodstream to sugar. Sugar rise goes up, insulin stimulates this sugar to get into the cell of the body, to feed the cell and to maintain homeostasis. So there's always this fine mechanism between eating a meal, getting blood sugar, and then in between meals a depletion of blood sugar, and then again the blood sugar comes up, because the body needs this all the time. So it gets regulated. Now, nicotine has an interesting effect because it constricts blood vessels and it stimulates the stress in the body. So, but it also can stimulate the release of glycogen. And when this happens again, then the pancreas has to release again insulin to move the sugar into the cell. Nicotine has a very interesting effect on the adrenal gland because it stimulates the production of adrenaline, which also stimulates the release of glycogen. So there's a kind of vicious circle between smoking, because it initiates stress, which pushes blood sugar up. And of course, when you get these blood sugar hits and you get the lows, this is what makes you want to go back and keep having cigarettes every 2 to 3 hours. So I remember when I was smoking, I would smoke maybe a cigarette every 3 to 4 hours. It's not uncommon. Many people have got a particular time span when they want that hit. There is definitely a link between tobacco smoking and the continuation of Candida. So my advice for you, Sinead, is to stop smoking, to look at other ways of smoking. I look at vaping. I don't think vaping's any better. In fact, I've watched some research recently on the internet about vaping now, where they're very concerned about people inhaling particles of metal in the vapor from these devices. So we don't know. It's a little bit like mobile phones. We don't know what the long-term ramifications of vaping are on health. Probably like we didn't know in the 50s of cigarette smoking. So I feel in time, probably by the year 2050, we'll know that vaping is probably worse than smoking. So anything you inhale into your lungs is going to be damaging to the body. But anything with a high nicotine content is going to help keep this vicious cycle of high and low blood sugar going. Also, some studies show that it initiates oral candida and bad breath. Other studies show that it's bad on stomach and acid production in the stomach. It can cause appetite increase or appetite suppression. So it also affects neurotransmitters like dopamine, acetylcholine, serotonin. Receptors in the small intestine get affected also by nicotine. So smoking is not really good for your health in general. It's not good for your pocket. It's not good for your health. And it also annoys people around you. So my recommendations for you, Sinead, are to look at discontinuing smoking and look at some type of incentive to help you get off cigarettes. Save the money. Take your friend on a good holiday and enjoy that. Okay? I hope that answers your question regarding tobacco smoking. I forgot to elaborate on the caffeine, but what I should have told you is caffeine has very similar effects with Candida. I don't see 1 cup of coffee being necessarily bad for people a day, but many people who have caffeine don't eat the right kind of foods, and they tend to have not 1 coffee, but up to 6 or 7 coffees a day. And there's definitely a link with high caffeine and many of the effects I just spoke about with nicotine. They're both alkaloids, and the chemicals that can affect you adversely. Thanks for checking out my video.